Hello, welcome to Revive Hi-Fi Canada, and today's speaker feature is the small but effective JBL N24ii speaker. So yes, these are small bookshelf speakers that are quite convenient actually. So we'll get into the build quality and And so just starting off the top, these are speakers that have a plastic casing around them, so they're a little different. I would say that they tend to have a bit of a curve to them on the back, so they are a nice plastic curved case. They're not like a wood box like many of the speakers that we review on the channel. They're fully plastic. As you can see on the front, they have a front port. So they are front, you can put them up against the wall. Front ported speakers are convenient that way. They do have they're called the N24, so that means that they have a 4-inch woofer, so they're pretty small, and they have a 3/4 inch titanium laminate tweeter. And I'm a big fan of JBL speakers. They have a lot of value for what you pay. I think that's the biggest thing that I really like, that they make speakers that really tend to give you your money's worth. And so in thinking about JBL, this is the N series, so this is the Northridge series. I've had the S series on the channel, the S38 most recently on the channel, and the S26. I've also had the I also have a pair of S26 2s as well that we'll feature later on the channel. And those S series speakers have a pure titanium dome tweeter, whereas these Northridge have a titanium, I believe a titanium laminate dome tweeter. And so there's a little difference there. I would imagine the laminate means that it's got like a titanium coating over a different material. It's got what is called an elliptical oblate spheroidal EOS waveguide that surrounds the tweeter, and that supposedly is to help disperse the sound better. The 4-inch woofer is made of polyplast, so that's the same material that I believe is in the Studio series, the S25. These are the N, so the N stands for the Northridge series. It is a rubber surround, of course. It's got very nice binding posts. So they have a very nice, well done binding posts. I love when you can stick the sticker alligator, whatever, the sticker connectors right into the back. So those are pretty nice. I do like that they're light, and they weigh only 4.5 pounds each. They're really small, so that makes sense. They measure, I think they measure about, let me see here, they measure, where is it? I think they're about 9 inches tall. So they measure about 9 inches tall. They have I think about 7 inches wide, and they have, let me go take a look here. So they have the frequency response is 75 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So they're not going to give you killer bass, and that's expected with a 4-inch woofer. But that being said, I'm very surprised by these. I can't say that I'm not impressed with the amount of bass that comes out of these speakers. They have really decent bass, and that's, to me, is kind of a common theme with JBL, is that you tend to get much better bass than you're expecting out of these little, no matter what the size actually of speaker that JBL produces, they tend to always deliver on the bass. They believe they have an impedance of 6 ohms and a sensitivity of 86 dB. So they're not the most sensitive speakers, so you do need some power. And in this video, I did use the Yamaha RS700, and that gives, of course, really decent power, 100 watts per channel. I do think, though, so here's the measurements. They're 9.5-inch height, about 6 inches wide, so not 7, sorry, and there's about 6 inches deep. So they've got a curved back. They're quite nice. They actually hook up quite nicely to wall mounts. They're you know, even though they're not overly heavy, they do feel extremely well made. And probably the lightness, the low weight comes from having a plastic casing. So they're not too bad. I do think that the 75 hertz is pretty accurate, but they do roll off slowly, so then you do get pretty decent bass response. And you know, this is a relatively large room that I'm playing these in, but if I use them at my computer or desktop, they're really great. I have to say they do a good job. I mean, in a small room, they're not bad at all. And one thing I do enjoy about these is that, just speaking of the highs don't ever get too screechy. Usually with these small speakers, they're trying to shout when you're pumping them with power. These don't. They do work hard to give you the sound, but they don't get shouty. They don't get annoying sounding. They just stay in their lane no matter how much power you're feeding them within, of course, a certain range. And then their lows are pretty decent. The mids are great. The vocals sound really good. You know, sound stage is not going to be huge on these speakers. They're small. They don't feel like they sound way bigger than they are. They sound just a slightly bigger than they are, I would say. So they're not going to blow you away. But again, for a small room, or if you want some background music in a room, you could do a lot worse than these. They sound pretty good. They do bring out a lot of detail from the music. That titanium dome tweeter that JBL made from this era of speaker is an extremely well performing tweeter, as I have experienced with many of my other speakers. I love that they bring out a lot of detail, but they don't get too screechy or shrill. They do a good job there. You can only expect so much, again, for the mids and the lows from a 4-inch woofer. But if you've got a sub and you combine it with these, which I have at my desk, it sounded pretty good, I would say. Nothing is too annoying sounding. It just sounds nice. Very pleasant. I do like these in a small room or at my desktop. I did enjoy that. So a very budget desktop solution. They would fit the bill for sure. I used them for a while that way and I like them. So that's pretty much all I've got to say. They're really fun speakers and they're really easy to mount. I had them mounted on a wall before for home theater. Now I've switched my home theater. I have a Wharfdale Diamond based home theater, and I think that those speakers are much bigger, of course, on the surrounds. I have 9.1s on my surrounds and 9.5s at the front, so I think that I've gone slightly larger, but these as smaller speakers do a really nice job. There's nothing wrong with them, so they're very good. So thank you very much for watching, and see you again next time on Revive Hi-Fi Canada. Bye now, have a great day, and thank you for watching. Bye now.